9 experienced hikers went into the Russian wilderness in 1959. Only their frozen bodies came back out. What killed them remains one of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries of all time, and the evidence will make your blood run cold. I'm about to tell you a story that will keep you awake tonight. The Dyatlov Pass Incident has baffled investigators for over 60 years. 9 people died in the most bizarre circumstances imaginable, and every single explanation scientists have come up with just creates more questions. By the end of this video, you'll know why this case is so disturbing that even the Russian government tried to cover it up. Picture this. It's January 1959, and a group of 9 college students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute decides to go on what should have been a routine skiing expedition. These weren't beginners. Every single member of this group was an experienced hiker and skier. They knew the mountains like the back of their hand. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student who had organized multiple successful expeditions before this one. He was joined by 8 others: Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Krivonischenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Alexander Zolotaryov, and Semyon Zolotaryov. One member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early due to illness, which probably saved his life. Their plan was simple. They would ski through the northern Ural Mountains to reach Otorten, a mountain about 200 kilometers away. The route was challenging, but well within their capabilities. They expected to be back by February 12th. They never made it, but here's where things get really strange. When rescue teams finally found their campsite weeks later, what they discovered defied all logic and reason. That on February 26, 1959, search teams discovered the group's abandoned tent on the slopes of what's now called Dyatlov Pass. What they found there still gives investigators nightmares today. The tent had been cut open from the inside, not torn by wind or animals, but deliberately sliced with a knife by someone inside the tent. And here's the part that makes no sense. The hikers had fled into the freezing wilderness wearing almost nothing. We're talking about temperatures of minus 25 to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Some were barefoot, others were only socks or a single boot. Think about that for a moment. These were experienced mountaineers who knew that going outside in those conditions without proper clothing meant certain death. What could have been so terrifying that they chose to run into a frozen wasteland rather than stay in their warm tent? The first bodies were found at the edge of a forest, about a kilometer from the tent. Yuri Krivonischenko and Yuri Doroshenko were discovered under a large cedar tree, and both were nearly naked. But that's not the weird part. The weird part is that the cedar tree showed signs that someone had climbed it, breaking branches up to 5 meters high. What were they looking at? What are they running from? 3 more bodies were found between the cedar tree and the tent, apparently trying to make their way back to shelter. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin had all died of hypothermia, but Slobodin had a fractured skull. How do you get a skull fracture from hypothermia? The remaining 4 bodies weren't discovered until May, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. And this is where the Dyatlov Pass incident goes from mysterious to absolutely terrifying. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue and eyes. Alexander Zolotaryov and Alexander Kolevatov had severe chest injuries. Their ribs were crushed with a force equivalent to a car crash. But here's what makes no sense. There were no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises. Their ribs were shattered from the inside, but their skin was completely intact. The medical examiner said the force required to cause these injuries was so massive that it would be impossible for another human being to inflict them. We're talking about the kind of damage you'd see if someone was hit by a truck, but there were no trucks in the middle of the Siberian wilderness. When investigators examined the hikers' clothing, they found something that changed everything. Some of the clothes were radioactive. Not all of them, just certain pieces, and the radiation levels were significantly higher than normal background radiation. Now, this was 1959, during the height of the Cold War. The Soviet government immediately classified the case and shut down the investigation. The official cause of death was listed as compelling natural force. What kind of natural force cuts out someone's tongue and eyes while crushing their ribs from the inside? But wait, there's more. And this is where things get really creepy. Several witnesses in the area reported seeing strange orange lights in the sky on the night the hikers died. These weren't just one or two people. Multiple witnesses from different locations all described the same phenomenon. Bright orange orbs moving across the sky in ways that defied conventional aircraft. One witness was a meteorologist at a weather station about 50 kilometers away. He was a trained observer, someone whose job it was to watch the sky and report unusual phenomena. He described seeing these lights and being unable to explain them with any known natural or man-made cause. Over the decades, investigators have proposed dozens of theories to explain what happened at Dyatlov Pass. Let's go through the main ones and see why each one falls apart under scrutiny. Theory 1. Avalanche. This was one of the first official explanations. Maybe an avalanche hit the tent, forcing the hikers to cut their way out and flee. But there are huge problems with this theory. First, the tent was found mostly intact and properly secured. An avalanche would have buried or destroyed it completely. Second, there were no signs of avalanche activity in the area. The snow patterns were undisturbed except for the hikers' footprints leading away from the tent. Most importantly, avalanches don't explain the internal injuries, the missing tongue and eyes, or the radioactive clothing. This theory was eventually abandoned by most serious investigators. Theory 2. Animal attack. Maybe a bear or other predator attacked the group. But this doesn't work either. There were no animal tracks found anywhere near the campsite. Bears hibernate in winter, and the injuries weren't consistent with animal attacks. Animals don't remove tongues and eyes while leaving the rest of the body intact. They also don't crush ribs from the inside without leaving claw marks or bite wounds. Theory 3. Infrasound. This is one of the more scientific theories. Infrasound is low-frequency sound waves that can cause panic, disorientation, and feelings of dread in humans. The theory suggests that wind patterns in the area could have created infrasound that drove the hikers into a panic. While infrasound can indeed cause psychological effects, it doesn't explain the physical injuries. It might explain why they fled the tent in panic, but it doesn't explain the crushed ribs, the missing body parts, or the radioactive clothing. Theory 4. Military testing. Given that this happened during the Cold War, some investigators believe the hikers stumbled into a secret military test. Maybe they witnessed something they shouldn't have, and Soviet forces killed them to keep it secret. This theory has some merit. The radioactive clothing could be explained by exposure to nuclear materials. The severe internal injuries could be caused by some kind of experimental weapon. The government cover-up certainly supports this theory, but there are problems here too. Why would the military stage such an elaborate cover-up? If they wanted to kill witnesses, there are much simpler ways to do it than whatever caused these specific injuries. And why would they allow the bodies to be found at all? Theory 5. Katabatic wind. This is a more recent theory proposed by scientists in 2021. Katabatic winds are powerful downdrafts that can occur in mountainous areas. The theory suggests that such a wind hit the tent, forcing the hikers to cut their way out and flee. While katabatic winds are real and can be dangerous, they still don't explain the internal injuries, the radioactive clothing, or the missing body parts. This theory might explain why they left the tent, but not what killed them afterward. Here's what makes the Dyatlov Pass incident even more suspicious: the Soviet government's response. Immediately after the bodies were discovered, the area was classified as off-limits. The investigation was shut down after just a few weeks. All evidence was sealed, and the investigators were told to never speak about the case again. The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, later said that he was ordered to classify the case and stop investigating. He believed something extraordinary had happened, but he was forbidden from pursuing it further. It wasn't until decades later, after the fall of the Soviet Union, that he revealed he suspected the hikers had encountered something beyond normal explanation. Why would the government react this way to a simple hiking accident? If it was really just hypothermia and natural causes, why classify everything? Why shut down the investigation so quickly? Why forbid people from entering the area for years afterward? The government's response suggests they knew exactly what happened, and they didn't want anyone else to find out. Modern investigations and new evidence in 2019, exactly 60 years after the incident, Russian authorities reopened the case. They conducted new investigations using modern forensic techniques and technology. After months of work, they announced their conclusion: avalanche. But many experts immediately criticized this finding. The new investigation seemed designed to reach a predetermined conclusion rather than genuinely solve the mystery. They ignored much of the evidence that didn't fit their avalanche theory, including the radioactive clothing, the internal injuries, and the witness reports of strange lights. Independent investigators have continued working on the case, and they've uncovered some interesting new evidence. Analysis of the photos taken by the hikers themselves shows some anomalies that weren't noticed before. In some of the last photos taken before their deaths, there appear to be strange light sources that can't be explained by normal photography or campfire light. Computer analysis of the hikers' final diary entries and notes has revealed that they were concerned about something in the days before their deaths. While their entries start out normal and cheerful, there's a gradual shift in tone. They began mentioning strange sounds at night and an increasing sense of unease. The most disturbing evidence, but here's the evidence that keeps investigators awake at night, and it's something that didn't come to light until decades after the incident. Geiger counter readings taken in the area years later showed elevated radiation levels in specific spots that corresponded exactly to where the bodies were found. This radiation wasn't from nuclear fallout or natural sources. It had a signature that suggested exposure to artificial radioactive materials. Even more disturbing, medical records that were sealed for decades revealed additional details about the condition of the bodies. Lyudmila Dubinina wasn't just missing her tongue and eyes. Her tongue had been removed with surgical precision, and her eye sockets showed signs of being cleaned out completely. This wasn't the work of scavengers or natural decomposition. The chest injuries on the other victims showed a pattern that forensic experts couldn't match to any known cause. The ribs were crushed inward with enormous force, but the crushing was uniform across the entire chest cavity. It was as if something had applied pressure evenly across their entire torso with enough force to shatter bones. What really happened at Dyatlov Pass? After examining all the evidence, considering all the theories, and looking at the government's suspicious behavior, I believe the answer is more terrifying than any single explanation that I think the hikers encountered something that the Soviet government was testing in that remote area. Something so secret, so dangerous, that when these innocent students stumbled across it, they had to be eliminated to protect the secret. The radioactive clothing suggests exposure to nuclear materials. The precise removal of Lyudmila's tongue and eyes suggests someone was trying to prevent her from talking about what she saw. The internal injuries suggest some kind of weapon or technology that could cause massive internal damage without external wounds. The strange lights in the sky. Military aircraft testing new technology. The government cover-up? They were protecting a weapons program. The reason the case has never been solved? Because solving it would reveal military secrets that are still classified today. But here's the really terrifying part. Whatever was being tested in that remote area in 1959, whatever technology or weapon killed those 9 innocent people, it was advanced enough that we still can't fully understand it today. That suggests the Soviet Union was developing military technology that was decades ahead of what anyone thought possible. Think about that. In 1959, they had something powerful enough to kill people in ways that still baffle forensic experts today. What do they have now? What military technology exists today that we know nothing about? The Dyatlov Pass Incident isn't just an unsolved mystery from the past. It's a window into a world of secret military programs and advanced technology that governments don't want us to know about. Those 9 hikers died because they saw something they weren't supposed to see. And the most chilling part? If this technology existed in 1959, and if the government was willing to kill innocent people to keep it secret, what other secrets are buried in remote locations around the world? How many other mysterious deaths are actually cover-ups for military programs we can't even imagine? The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries of the modern era because every piece of evidence points to something beyond our normal understanding. 9 experienced hikers died in ways that shouldn't be possible from natural causes. Their bodies showed injuries that couldn't be inflicted by humans, animals, or environmental factors. Some of their clothing was radioactive. Witnesses saw unexplained lights in the sky, and the government immediately covered everything up. 60 years later, we still don't have satisfactory answers. Every official explanation falls apart when you examine the evidence closely. Every theory leaves crucial questions unanswered. The only thing that makes sense is that these people encountered something extraordinary, something so secret that their deaths had to be covered up to protect it. What makes this case so terrifying isn't just what happened to those 9 people. It's what their deaths tell us about the world we live in. There are technologies, weapons, and government programs operating in secret that are far more advanced than anything the public knows about. When innocent people stumble across these secrets, they can disappear or die in ways that look impossible to explain. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is a reminder that we don't really know what our governments are capable of or what they're willing to do to protect their secrets. Those 9 students thought they were going on a fun skiing trip. Instead, they became casualties in a Cold War that was far more advanced and far more deadly than anyone imagined. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more mysteries that governments don't want you to know about.